Rob, in the midst of all of the stories regarding the pandemic and the movie industry, from movies getting bumped, theaters shutting down, studios being in trouble, all this kind of stuff, one of the big interesting stories throughout the pandemic was the fate of AMC theaters. AMC theaters, of course, had just before the pandemic broke out, spent a whole ton of money, and they leveraged themselves to the hilt on smart moves, acquiring new theaters, renovating theaters, putting in the leather recliners, replacing projectors, all to enhance, and they spent a ton of money on getting AMC A-List up and running. And just as they spent all their money and were poised to start making money back, the pandemic hit, and they were in more trouble than any other movie theater. They were in more trouble than anybody. There was a lot of questions about whether or not they would even survive. And then, out of nowhere, the meme stock hit. And values of their stock, which once hovered down around $2, shot up to 20. And then later up to 30, and then up to 50 and 60 and teasing 70. It's dropped back down a bit now and whatever. And that allowed AMC theaters to say, hey, our stock is worth how much? Let's reissue some new stock and cash in on this. Rob, I remember an article in Yahoo Finance that proclaimed that AMC theaters in 1.5 days wiped out all of their losses of 2020. All the stuff they lost due to the pandemic, they gained back in 1.5 days because of the meme stock. And as a result, they've also banked a bunch of cash. And Rob, you and I talked about 2 weeks ago, I think, that looked like AMC might try to use some of this new rich cash to expand a little bit. Now, of course, one of the other stories was that in Los Angeles, some very, very iconic theaters, Pacific Grove Theaters, Americana, the ones that Americana owned by the same company, and of course, the ArcLight Cinemas, which were also owned by the same company, that AMC was looking at maybe taking those over. Well, now it looks like they're moving full steam ahead, Rob. It looks like AMC is now, they've gone from the brink of death, thanks to a meme stock, and now they're expanding and buying all these big theaters. This comes just from the folks over at Variety who write the following. AMC is close to taking over Pacific Theater locations at 2 popular Los Angeles shopping malls, a source confirmed to Variety on Tuesday. Pacific Theaters, and Rob, you got to understand, guys, these are iconic because a ton of the press screenings that happen at these theaters. They happen at the Americana, they happen at the Pacific, a lot of them at ArcLight as well. But anyway, Pacific Theaters, founded in 1946, announced in April that it would not be reopening its 17 locations as pandemic restrictions loosened. That includes a half dozen Pacific locations and 11 ArcLight locations in Southern California. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Pacific operated the theaters at the Grove Shopping Complex in Fairfax neighborhood, that's right basically in Beverly Hills, and the Americana at Brand and Glendale. On Tuesday, ticketing websites showed 2 new theater locations in the city. The AMC at the Americana 18 and the AMC at the Grove 14. Those locations were later scrubbed from the AMC app and website. So it's like, whoopsie, we accidentally let it out of the bag. So Rob, obviously it's clear they said they were going to try to get these theaters. Obviously, those attempts worked. They were flush with cash after the meme stock that they took advantage of very smartly before the stock comes back down. And it now looks like they're expanding operations and they're taking over some of the biggest. Now, there's nothing in here, Rob, about the ArcLight and the Cinema Dome. But in a previous statement, AM did say that they were specifically targeting that theater as well. Rob, it now looks like it's kind of concrete. How do you feel about AMC theaters using their current position and expanding into these theaters that are now sitting empty?
Well, I'm a big fan of both the Americana and the Grove. I mean, I can't tell you how many movies. I used to live over by the Grove. I can't tell you how many movies I've seen there. I really like both of those facilities. I mean, they're ultimately not like the ArcLight. They weren't premium theaters, but they're very, very good theaters. And I like the auditoriums in both. They're pretty big and spacious, and they've got great projection and sound. And if maybe AMC would even upgrade one to a Dolby Cinema, I'd be all for that. I think that great. Those are anchor. Those both of those theaters are in the middle of these outdoor malls. Great places to go hang out. I love going to both venues and having a nice meal and then going to see a movie. It's the Americana is close to where we live, so it's a venue that we would go to see movies at. And now it's back, and I'm pleased as punch, John. Pleased as punch. Now, hello, ArcLight. Somebody step in, ArcLight Pasadena. It's 5 minutes from my house. Let's go, man. Come on, what's up?
Well, that seems to be the next logical thing because it seems like if they're already closing deals on these other movie theaters, but it is crazy, Rob, when you stop to think about it, about how much that meme stock turned everything around for AMC because
Yeah.
they were going the way of the dinosaur. I mean, things were not looking good. And it wasn't really their fault. I mean, they spent all their money and everything, but on good things that was going to make them money. And then all of a sudden their theaters had to shut down. And now all of a sudden they're flush with cash. They're buying up new theaters. It's an interesting time. Question is for you guys. What do you make of this? Maybe you're not even anywhere near the LA area and it doesn't matter to you at all. Maybe you're like just somebody who's really big into the theaters and this is interesting. Whatever it is, what do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.